Sure. Did we get a flag?
A flag?
We're pointing ourselves toward where it is.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
Flag
of the
of the
United States
of
of
America,
America and to
and
the
to the
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it stands,
stands,
one
one
a nation
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for all.
all.
There's our flag.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Robert.
Great.
yeah, Robert had a flag.
Very good.
That was great.
Resourceful. Okay, and first we will go into closed session. Then we'll continue with our regular agenda. So
Would you like to take roll call attendance, or are we okay with?
No, I think we should do roll call first, and I don't know if we have any public comments, but
okay,
For the record, there is no public comment submitted prior to the start of this meeting.
Judy, would you please do roll call?
Yes. Sherry Schottmeyer,
Here.
Julie Forrester, Catherine Kevinis,
Here.
Lee Parker,
Here.
Kathy Smith,
Here,
Quincy Cromer,
Here.
Tim Knutson,
Here.
Geraldine Harris,
here,
Richard Shoemaker is absent, and Dan Jurdy.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we'll go into closed session, and Jeff will help us out.
video. session item, direction was given to staff and council.
Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. Is there any discussion or possible action regarding any of the consent agenda items? Seeing none, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is our investment matters. So Robert, is Robert going to help us with that, or I'm not sure as far as investment matters. Doris, can I defer to you, please?
Robert's on his way in here.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Robert?
Did we cover consent?
Robert, we're moving to the Callan piece now. Did you have any comments on the investment report for this month?
No, nothing in particular.
Okay. Then we will move on to discussion regarding Article 8.4 of the County Employee Retirement Law.
Thank you, Chair Cavness. The CERL provides an optional article that would only be effective if adopted by the Board of Supervisors. That section addresses community property rights by use of a split account methodology. Currently, since that article is not in effect in Mendocino County, we use the shared benefit approach, which requires that the alternate payee, ex-spouse of a member cannot receive their portion of that community property interest in the pension benefit until the employee member leaves and retires and draws a benefit, or receives a lump sum payment because they would share in the payments being issued to the member. By virtue of split accounts, it allows the non-member to become an account holder and have transferred to them a certain amount of contributions and years of service, and that non-member account holder would be able to then retire or take a refund of their contributions independent of the member. It's something that employees often like because it's a little easier to understand. It also allows people to take action independently based on their own needs, as opposed to being tied to decisions that could happen years in the future when an employee actually retires. So there's some basic background information in the memo provided to you in your board packets. I'm really looking to see whether or not there's additional interest on behalf of the board to have us do additional research. We're not anywhere close probably to needing a motion on whether or not we want to send this to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation. But I wanted to lay out some of the background information on what Article 8.4 of the CERL would provide for your understanding, and give you some rough idea of the issues that we would need to address and some rough cost information related to those topics. It would require that we make modifications to the pension system that would run, I think, in the neighborhood of $30,000 or so. And then also we would need an actuarial study performed before it could go to the Board of Supervisors. We'd also need the board to make some decisions and maybe get some legal counsel recommendation on how to interpret certain sections of that article and develop some policies regarding it. So it's not really an action item today, but more informational, and really just to gauge whether or not there's any interest on the board level for doing more research in pursuing this. Trustee Cromer asked us to look into this, and this information is being provided on his behalf, and he may have comments he'd like to add.
I would, but I believe Tim had a comment first. Go ahead, Tim.
I have a question for Jeff. I thought I understood California is not a community property state. Does that have any effect on this? And then the other issue would be what Quincy brought up. Going back in the past, issues like this usually were brought to the retirement board by an employees association, like a SEIU or DSA, with a request to do it, because it's not something that I think the retirement board should take on their own and spend that kind of money when we don't know if it's even going to affect anybody.
So I'll let Doris speak to the substance of it, but yes, there are several systems that have moved to split accounts. It's consistent with the CERL, and there are some advantages to the members, and I'll let Doris speak to the why the benefits, why certain members may want a split account.
Quincy, why don't you go ahead and make your comments?
Very good. So the reason I had requested the executive director to research some of this is I have been contacted by multiple members that I specifically represent in the safety field that are interested in this board considering this option for DROs, for domestic relation orders. So I had requested that the executive director prepare a summary of this type of split benefit and a very generic cost analysis of what it could potentially venture into for costs for the board to consider to gauge if there's any support to further pursue this matter. And that was at the request of multiple members that are specifically assigned to safety in the county. And other than that, I have spoken with other counties that have implemented this and also used pension gold. Sonoma County is one example. They have implemented this different language into the CERL and offer split accounts, and they also use pension gold. So there is, for lack of a better term, a sort of roadmap set there that I know every county retirement system is different. So it's not perfect it's not a cookie cutter shape for each county that might consider doing this, but it has worked for other counties and has benefited some of their members that are interested in doing the split account for domestic relation orders.
Lee?
Well, look, the costs involved in analyzing this and setting it up sounded pretty significant, if I'm not mistaken, in what I read. And if that be the case, and it only benefits a few of our members, why shouldn't there be some, if we did do this, why shouldn't there be some fee connected with it for, some administrative fee? It's not our fault that people get separated and create a lot of extra work for us. So, and it looks like substantial costs. Can you talk a little bit more to that, Doris?
There's essentially three areas where the system could incur costs related to adoption of Article 8.4 of the CERL. First, it does require that an actuarial study be performed according to our fiduciary counsel. This section is not one of the items that is excluded from needing an actuarial study. So the cost of the actuarial study would run $6,000 to $9,000 was the estimate. Actual cost would be based on the number of hours the study actually took. But that was a rough cost estimate provided by Siegel. Before we could go to Siegel and get an actuarial analysis done, we would need to make some determinations on how MCERA would administer this section. Some of those would be board decisions. Some of that might require input from counsel, whether board counsel or fiduciary counsel. And I do not have an idea of the number of hours that fiduciary or board counsel may work on those types of questions that could arise if we wanted to move forward. But we would need to be cognizant of costs in that area also. After those issues are determined and resolved, and should the Board of Supervisors actually adopt it, we would need to have pension gold modified to account for the split account process. And that price would run somewhere in the $30,000 to $45,000 range. That's a very rough ballpark, with the vendor saying it would probably run closer to the 30,000 and not the 45, but they don't really know until they get in there and do a full estimate. But I didn't want to incur the hours of work to get a detailed estimate if it was something where we really didn't have enough interest in pursuing at this point in time. So that's basically the information I have available on the potential costs at this point. Again, it would be something that would require a fair amount of time to pursue, even if the board has a desire to. It's not something that we're going to have in place, next month or end of the year or something like that, just due to the work required to bring this together.
So it sounds like $100,000 worth of costs, including staff time, to benefit how many people who were not obligated to benefit?
I truly don't know. I can say that in jurisdictions that have adopted it, it is a fairly popular methodology to use. It is preferred for most folks over the shared account methodology. That being said, even if we adopt this section, if someone is already retired, they can only use the shared account methodology, and we wouldn't be able to do a split account for in those instances. But I can't tell you how many divorces we currently process each year, and I can't tell you how many people would choose this route if it were available, but I can say that it is the more popular option in systems that offer both in the systems that I'm familiar with.
So let me address Lee's question. So we do have a fiduciary obligation to the members, and I can't speak to the substantive benefits, but obviously a lot of systems have moved to it. If it would cost $10 million to do, you'd weigh the cost to the system and the fiduciary obligation. If it was free, then maybe you'd want to benefit the members. So it's not free and it's not $10 million, but there's obviously benefits to the members, but a lot of analysis and the systems, by the way, their councils don't agree even on how it's interpreted. As we all know from the 37 Act, it's very complex. And we have discussed this very briefly with fiduciary counsel. And I don't want to betray any attorney-client privileges or get ahead of ourselves, but suffice it to say that her opinion is not necessarily the same as how other systems have interpreted. So there's a lot involved here.
Catherine? Catherine?
Yeah, Jerry.
I'm still here. I haven't gone to sleep. First of all, Quincy, thank you for telling me what a DRO is. I read this last night and I should know, but I didn't. Secondly, I want to caution all of us at this point against adding to staff workload now. Period.
Julie.
So on the agenda today is just, do we want to explore a better cost estimate? So I don't believe true that we know how many members this affects right now, but I don't think the members know if it's going to affect them because they're in a marriage and they don't know that they're going to end up in a dissolution. So to me, it's a potential benefit for members when they are in a period of their life that they do have to go through a DRO and work out some financial agreement. And I'm saying I'm interested in exploring the cost and having that discussion. And it's a potential investment in our employees. And at this point it says $54,000. I know it'll be more than that with legal and MSARA staff. And I'm not saying put it as a #1 priority, but it may be something that we want to put on the board work plan. And I'm at least interested in finding out more about the costs at that. That's all for me.
Lee?
I'm fine with that. You know, it is a good thing for our members, and everybody has issues, and you know, it's just a normal thing in life. But if I did support it down the line, I would want to see that those members pay a fee to, over time, the number of memberships that would amortize out those costs to the broad membership. So it'd be like you know, you get a divorce and you want to split up your pension plan, it's $1,000 fee. I mean, everything else that goes along with dividing up your assets comes with a fee with it. So I don't know why we shouldn't have a fee for ours.
I'm not sure you could do that legally.
Quincy?
Why not?
Just to further what Julie said, and I did want to bring this to the board to gauge the support. I think it goes without saying that I am in support of further pursuing a solid cost estimate, so we as a board can make a responsible decision as to what direction we want to go from there. And I believe if the board desires to get that solid cost estimate through the executive director, we will have multiple members that would be interested in addressing the board and explaining the benefit that it could cause to members of our system. And I agree, Lee, that it's not going to be every member of the system, but there's other benefits and other things that we offer that don't benefit every member of the system. And I'm truly trying to represent some of the people that have come to me and proposed this type of language. I think, in my opinion, if we don't even get a full estimate, that we're not even giving it a fair shake at this stage of the game.
I agree. I'm open-minded.
Harry, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I do see where this would be a benefit for the members and simplify things. And I would say I'm in agreement. Let's find out what the costs are. That would be everything. And who bears those costs? Does the retirement system bear all those costs? The county, the plan sponsors do not bear any of that cost? Is that, you know, and the actuarials and all that stuff? That would be one question. And then the other thing is, it feels like too that we will be getting new members on our board of supervisors. The board of supervisors, even if we pass this, the board of supervisors has to approve it. And it feels like we may need to start, and maybe it's Quincy and the DSA group, if that's who's leading this charge. I think there needs to be some communication with the board, the sitting board, maybe in January, because certainly nothing's going to happen in the next month or two. And make sure that they're on board with this before we go spending all this money. And then, which I would think that they would think that would be equitable as well. But then to what Jerry's saying, I do have concerns with the Alameda case and the other things that are on our staff's plate right now that I do have concerns as far as moving forward with anything like this. But I do think that it's definitely worth us exploring, because I do think that our goal is to benefit our members. And I think that I could see where it would benefit our members.
Kathy?
Well, I would agree with that we want to at least look into the cost, see what the potential cost might be. I do want to say, because I'm familiar with this somewhat, that we need to make sure we know what the benefits are going either with a shared or split system. And maybe you've already looked at that, Quincy, but I do know that in Colorado, where I came here from, that if you have a shared benefit, then should your ex-spouse pass away, that total amount of retirement pay comes back to you. Whereas if you have a split case and they separate it between you and your ex-spouse at the time of divorce, then you will never get more than what the amount is, even if your ex-spouse were to pass away. So I just want to make sure we look at all those benefits and problems.
To address that, from a staff perspective, most systems have found split benefits to be easier to administer in some regards, because first of all, they're easier for the member and non-member to understand what their benefit is. One of the problems with administering the shared benefit approach, and in our system, if that alternate payee ex-spouse passes, they still have a community interest in that pension benefit, and it would go to their named beneficiary or their estate until the member dies. We don't revert it here in what I've seen in CERL systems to the member in most instances. Part of the issue is ensuring that in a shared benefit formula that benefits to the non-member spouse terminate at the death of the member or get appropriately reduced and or terminate at the death of a qualifying survivorship. Because again, under a shared benefit formula, that alternate payee is entitled to a community property share of every pension payment essentially that the system makes. So you have to ensure that in triggering events that their benefit is reduced or stopped, even though that person may continue. So the non-member spouse is limited in their ability to receive a lifetime benefit with any guarantee of it being a lifetime benefit unless the member selects an option 4 at retirement. So there's a lot of different administrative components to administering shared benefits that can make them problematic in their own regard. And we will never move away from that because, like I said, if someone retires and then divorces, the only thing we can do is administer a shared benefit at that point. There are advantages and disadvantages to both systems, and someone who's in a dissolution action would really need to review those items and decide if it's appropriate for them.
Terry, did you have a comment?
Did I? No.
Okay.
I made mine already.
Okay, well, how about if we give direction to staff to include this on our work plan? Is everybody agreeable to that?
Include what, Catherine? The investigation?
The investigation, yes, of the 8.4.
Okay.
She just came in.
I thought the item was to come back with, to ask the director to come back at another board meeting with a more refined estimate, not yet put it on the board.
Okay.
Plan.
I would like to say that before I can actually even go to our vendor and ask them for the detailed estimate, it will require that we as a system make some decisions on how certain sections are interpreted or how we're going to administer certain provisions. So over the next few months, I'm happy to, with input from council, draft a position paper on how we would want to administer it to answer some of the questions that would be needed by both our programmers and by the actuary in order for them to do any further work. But until we have answers to certain questions on how we plan to address certain components of it, I can't even get the programmer to give us a cost estimate.
So can we not, we can't even get an estimate? I mean, I don't know how many systems have the split accounts and how many different interpretations there are. But I'm hoping that it doesn't have to require an inordinate amount of staff and council time and money just to get to that stage. But maybe we have to do that. I don't know.
I think at a minimum, I need direction, and that's why I was suggesting a position paper that I can then say to our programmers, this is how we plan to institute this section so they know how to program it. If we don't, I'm afraid we may go down a road that then is in conflict with either council's opinion on how it should be addressed or something else. But knowing how we plan to administer a particular section is relevant in the programming.
So then are you saying we need to have council's opinion and bring it to the board and then do it? So it would have to be an action item? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I think we need to have some decisions made regarding how we as a system, whether that's the board and council or council and management, want to pursue certain aspects of administration before I can go forward in getting a detailed estimate, because there's certainly significant differences.
I understand. So then that would require this coming back to the board and spending time and money for council and staff. Is that what this board wants to direct be done at this time?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
I'd like to ask
this isn't the right time.
So in that way, we can put it on the board work plan then, because we don't want to take our resources away from legal counsel and MSERA staff at this moment. But instead of completely saying no, I agree. I think Jerry was saying, put it on the board work plan for a date certain in the future that then allows time for that. But if we add a cost estimate for what just the legal counsel review would be as well.
Tim,
Maybe the position paper could do that, Doris. Just a general, between 10 and 50,000, or
I think if we add this to the board work plan with the intention of bringing it back, at a certain period, maybe in the next calendar or fiscal year, whatever that might be, I can bring forward maybe a suggestion on how certain aspects may be administered, and then the board can say if they're in agreement with that. Council will have already sort of looked at that, at least Jeff will have, and then we can move forward with information that both the actuary and the programmer would need in order to provide an estimate of what those costs could be. So I'm fine with the direction to put it on the board work plan and bring it back to the board at a future date. If you want to specify when, I'm happy to date certain that. But there are a lot of questions that I think I can draft how I think they should be addressed with council's input, but then we need to know that the board is good with how we would plan to administer it before we research any additional cost for programming and things of that nature.
So Doris, how would April be, or do you think maybe July?
I'd like to add something if I could, before we get into any more discussion on that. Since this sounds to me like an increase in a benefit to the employees and future retirees, and since it has to be okayed by the Board of Supervisors, this sounds to me like something that needs to be brought to the unions to be included in their MOUs. It's an increased benefit, increased cost to the retirement system. I think we need at least to ask that question. Does this need to be discussed with the unions and agreed to between the county and their unions and change their MOUs, because it is an increase in a benefit, and we need to get authorization from the Board of Supervisors to do it. I think we need to make sure that it's not something, I think it's not something we do. I think it's something the county does and the county unions do.
Yes, the county would do this, but whether
then they started. We don't spend our time and our staff time to look into something that the Board of Supervisors should be looking into, or the union should be looking into, not us.
Sherry Shatmeyer, did you have a comment? No. Julie?
I'm maybe I don't understand. I don't believe it's an increase in a benefit. I think it's an option, if I understand correctly, for when you're in a dissolution and you're negotiating your DRO, an option for you to change it from a shared benefit to a split, and in a way for a settlement out in your dissolution. So I don't know that it's a benefit in that way, that you have another option. Anyway, that's my understanding of it. And maybe Doris or Quincy can correct me if I'm wrong.
Your understanding is correct. Many systems actually treat this as having no cost to the system, other than, let's say, the programming cost to change their software to accommodate it, because you're essentially allowing the individual and the ex-spouse to select an option.
I don't believe it's an MOU issue.
And with, again, if there's an alternate, or excuse me, an optional provision like an option 2, option 3, option 4, those costs of selecting that optional allowance are borne by the person who's receiving that pension benefit. So there have been concerns whether or not it creates a cost to the system. Part of that is addressed by the fact that, based on our fiduciary counsel's opinion, that they would not have the ability to receive a survivorship under the unmodified, and we would have to look at other options to determine whether or not they are appropriate, because there's significant differences in how council views some aspects of the code and how other systems have past interpreted it.
Quincy.
Thank you. I am personally interested in what the executive director's timeframe would be. I think Geraldine asked a question of if she was thinking April, July, somewhere in there. I think that based on my understanding that the executive director has received some very minimal input from council on where they believe they would land on some of these issues. And I would like to know her timeframe that she would think of potentially bringing, like she called it, a research paper or whatever, to the board to consider further. And I think that would probably be minimal cost, in my understanding from my conversations with the executive director, to get to that stage before it went to anywhere else.
Thanks, Quincy.
I could have a position paper certainly back to the board by the July meeting. And that position paper would ask for board direction. I would lay out probably 1 or 2 different areas where there could be a difference in interpretation to get direction on how the board wishes to administer that particular item. And then we would actually go back and get hard cost numbers. But I could bring back a position paper, certainly not later than July.
Great.
So is it agreeable that we give direction to staff to pursue and bring back information in possibly July? Is everyone in agreement with that?
A legal paper, I believe.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Okay. So moving on to the administrative report, Doris. You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so in the administrative report, first I would like to congratulate Catherine Cavness for being unanimously elected Secretary for SACRS for the 2021 year. Congratulations, Catherine.
Thank you very much.
We will be running an election for the retired alternate seat. If I am correct with my information there, Judy can jump in if anything's incorrect. The ballots have been mailed and they're due back by October 9th with the announcement of the winner, accounting of the ballots on the 13th, if I'm not mistaken. So we're well in process there as far as holding the retiree alternate seat. Under administrative and operation items, just an update that we've been going through our annual valuation and our annual financial audits where things are progressing well. All audit work will be completed remotely this year due to the COVID-19, but we do not expect any delays. Everything seems to be right on schedule and moving forward well. There is a brief note here regarding yes, Mr. Knudsen?
Yes, you covered the election for the alternate member. You didn't say anything about the retiree member. Nate was not running again. What is happening with that position?
Jeff, if we only had 1 member for the open seat, we'll bring back an item next month for the board to adopt or place that person into position. Is that correct?
I can chime in.
Can
I'm already preparing this to be on the Board of Supervisors agenda and the Board of Retirement agenda, because we need to certify the election results, but we also need to declare that no election will be held for the general member seat because Catherine has remained unopposed for her seat. Tim's not going to continue as the retired member. Richard Shoemaker is now unopposed for the retired member seat. So we need to have the Board of Supervisors certify our election results, but then also declare that no election be held for those other 2 seats for the members that remain unopposed.
Okay.
Way to go, Richard.
Okay. Well,
Richard, I will turn into the first meeting to see you cast your first vote.
Kathy, did you have anything?
Thank you, Tim.
Well, if Richard's moving into Tim's spot, we still have an election for the alternate spot? There's still people running for that?
Correct. We have 2 candidates
Okay.
for the alternate spot.
Okay, but one of them's not Richard.
What are their
Neither of
names?
them are Richard.
The
What?
candidates are Jim Anderson and Leonard Swope.
It cut out on the second name. I'm sorry. That's what I was going to ask as well.
Jim Anderson and Leonard Swope.
Okay. Thank you.
Tim, how long have you been on the board?
Off and on, more on than off, since 1991, 28, 29 years.
That's amazing. What'll
Tell me
we do
about it.
without you? And what'll you do without us?
We'll both do just fine. All of us will do just fine, whichever way we go.
Well, Tim, I'll definitely miss you.
Thank you.
Is this your last meeting? Or
As a voting member?
I believe his term runs through November, does it not?
Okay,
Through
great.
November.
Yes,
So we
we run
can-
through November.
We can roast him later.
Good.
Okay.
Attached to the administrative report was a news article that ran in the Sacramento Bee regarding the impact of the California Supreme Court's decision in the Alameda case. We had briefly discussed this also at our August meeting with a passage of the resolution on how MCERL will address the requirements made in the Alameda decision. So the update is that we have sent out some notices, 19, to retired members who were affected by the exclusion of on-call and standby pay from compensation. And we continue to address the other issues remaining in the Alameda decision, primarily involving vacation cash out payments in compensation earnable. So we'll be bringing back some additional information on that. If you have any questions, please let me know. The last item is that because of the additional work from the Alameda decision and projects going on, I've discussed potentially bringing on an extra help position for a little bit of office assistance, performing things like scanning of correspondence and some data entry. It would free up some staff time to work on some other issues like the Alameda decision impacts, because that is fairly broad. And it would be a temporary position not to exceed 6 months. If there is support from the board in hiring an extra help position, I would bring back a budgeted amendment to the following meeting in October, and I would like some direction on that if available.
Catherine, I strongly favor our getting someone part-time on.
Okay, so Jeff, is this an action item or simply direction?
No, it's not an action item.
Okay, so is the board in agreement that direction to staff is to bring on another person for extra help?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're all in agreement? Thumbs up? Okay. All right, then, that concludes our 1 through 6 agenda items, and
Okay, I have one question on that report.
Yeah.
And actually, it might be Catherine's job to answer it.
okay,
Looking at the Sackers election, in the report, it shows additional candidates submitted. It shows other people that were voted for. And then it said no candidate selected. Does that mean that some one of the agencies withheld a vote?
I had that same question. I don't know what that means because there are 20 different systems, and for the members whose names are available, the two members that each of them got one vote, there were 18 other systems that supported the slate. So I'm not clear on that, what that means. And I can get back to you on that. I'll ask Salima, our SACRS administrator, if she could please explain that for us.
Sorry, I'm just an election geek.
Okay, no, I had the same question. So I will find out an answer for that. And
I can offer my understanding of it. I believe there was the two regular members at the bottom, David McDonald and John Kelly, who were both short 2 of the votes. It said all 20 SACRS systems have submitted their ballots.
right.
So I think the ones that didn't support that, 2 of them selected Bear Williams, 1 selected Edward Robinson, and 1 did not select a regular member. So that would be 4 votes that they're missing.
Okay.
My understanding.
Okay, well, I will double check on that. So we're now coming to general member discussion. Is there any discussion on anything? Okay.
I'd like to ask Lee, is he in Washington and is he a happy camper?
You're muted.
You're muted, Lee. Hello? Lee, you're muted. We can't hear you.
It's been beautiful up here, except for some smoke that you guys have sent us. But
Don't send it back. I like to
we've
make a
just been
comment.
worried about you guys. You know.
If I could, I'd make a comment, and Richard, you can attest to this. In this year of a very important election, don't think one vote doesn't count. Because, as Richard will attest, back when he and I ran against each other for the retirees position, I was coming in from the alternate position and he was coming in. I won by 1 vote, 1 single vote. So
wow.
Don't ever think your vote doesn't count, because it does.
Well, that's encouraging. Kathy, did you have anything?
I did, and I just wanted to thank you and congratulate you on the SACRS board again, because I look at all the people who are on there and they're all from huge county systems or large ones. And it's so nice to have a representative from a smaller system, because we do have a different perspective. And I also always find that those boards are, mainly made up of people from the South. So, everybody down there thinks that Northern California is San Francisco. So I think it's really good that you continue to serve on that board and represent the smaller Northern California counties.
Thank you,
Hear,
Kathy.
hear. Yay.
One of the main reasons why I ran for that position, because we have San Diego, Los Angeles County, Santa Barbara, they're huge.
Mm-hmm.
Also trying to put a request in to have some of the conferences situated closer to us in Northern California, but there are several logistical problems with that, some of them being cost and others having to do with the environment. Finding a safe environment is somewhat challenging. We have not too long ago, we had a conference in Northern California, but the accommodations are just too small. We have like over 600 participants, and it's hard to find the right mix of opportunities. So I'll keep trying.
Well, I would just say, Catherine, shoot for the top. Back in the mid-1980s, Sherry will remember Irene Lang, the former retirement administrator for Mendocino County, was the president of SACRS for a couple of years.
Well, that's a big responsibility. And I think that I might be like an alternate for the vice president position, being next in line as the secretary to vice president. So I might, this time around, I might just be an alternate for vice president for Roger Hilton from Orange County. He's really quite delightful as well. He's a wonderful person, and he's from a safety member, and he's always got an unexpected joke. He's very witty, and that sure helps. Any other discussion? I hope everybody feels is not in direct line of any of the fires or evacuation warnings. And Quincy, thank you for all your work on the fire. I saw that you were you have been writing up some of those reports or approving them for giving us updated information on fires.
It's been very busy in the Emergency Operations Center, and I have been filling the role of the Public Information Officer regularly. So thank you. I appreciate the support.
Okay.
Catherine, with the Willits fire, were you evacuated or were you okay?
Well, I left. I wasn't evacuated, but I live on the top of Pine Mountain. There's only one road out. And so when I keep close observation of where the fire is heading. And I thought, well, I'll just go stay over at my son's house in Redwood Valley. That'll be fun. That's where I am. And hopefully with the CAL FIRE taking over on the state side of the fire, that the prediction is that they will have it contained by September 30th. Is that right, Quincy?
I've not heard any estimates, but I know that the CAL FIRE incident management team is very good at what they do, and a lot of the local citizens are very excited to have them here. But I have not heard an estimate, sorry.
Okay, well, let's hope. Any other discussion? Okay, so the meeting will be adjourned at 10:39 on September 16th, and our next board meeting will be in October, and I don't have the date right in front of me, so it will be October 21st. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, October 21st at 8:30 a.m. Thank you.
Everybody take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Safe.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.